welcome to another exciting episode of the World Gaming Trade Show. I am your host, Jeremy, from the In-Game Boss program, the network of gaming and other variety shows, and of course, the original show, In-Game Boss podcast. But with me, of course, the guy all the way over in Indiana, Brendan from Game Addicts podcast. How you doing, buddy?
What's going on, man? Hey, it's going pretty good, man. I've been hanging out here in good old Indiana. Pandemic's still happening.
Did I say India? Or did I say Indiana?
No.
Right, cool.
I'm not that far across the
world. All right, cool.
Yeah. I mean, we're still doing the pandemic thing. That's still happening. 2020 hasn't gotten any nicer yet. Of course, we had, World on Fire, RIP, Kobe, pandemic, murder hornets, and then civil unrest. And now brain-eating amoeba in the water. I don't know if you heard about this one.
No. Yeah. I just try to stay out of the look at the news, man. Every day something's coming up. It's like, great, more stuff to add to the suck salad that is 2020.
Well, it's funny because murder hornets came and then they just instantly got forgot about, and someone's like, "Whatever happened to that?" And someone was like, "It was a filler episode. It was fine."
I don't know, man. 2020 is something else, but we're still pushing out content. We're still trying to stay positive. We're still trying to, do great content and whatnot, just like this show where, we take games that basically been forgotten, bring them back, talk about what developers that can give it new life. Games like in our history, for instance, if you listen to our last episode, we did Star Wars. That was a fun one. We did sci-fi like Snatcher and Shadowrun. We did Brave Fencer Musashi. We did Legend of Dragoon. We did Comic Zone. It's a bunch. And this is only our fifth episode? Sixth episode? Something like that?
It's one of those.
Yeah. So
it's funny because Legend of Dragoon kind of it got brought back up in the news a little bit. Or at least it was trending on Twitter just the other day. Because it was one of those things that kind of happens you can only pick 3. The rest of them are erased forever. Which 3 of these epic RPGs will you keep? It's it was Final Fantasy VII, Lunar Silver Star Story, Legend of Dragoon. It was a lot of them, and it's funny because the ones that I picked specifically because there's really no other way to play them. Like the other ones would be wiped away, but when their ports and their remakes be wiped away, which timey-wimey way are we doing this? Because I'm going to try and do a way here that I can play all these games. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to Doc Brown this shit, and we're going to figure this stuff out.
But no, just to kind of give people a heads up, if this is your first time listening to the show, this is a show that was created actually in thought last year, and then we started kind of pushing it through since January, and it has been nothing but good laughs, good times with Brendan here, and just the picks, because the best part about it is we don't know what developer we picked for the games that we decided on. And that's where the kicker comes from, because we try to help each other out on what ideas could help bring this game to life and other ideas that can help enhance it more. So it's just a great show, and I recommend everybody just listen to it. And if you're listening to it and you have some picks and ideas, leave a comment. Tell us.
Yeah.
So we can
absolutely.
So we can dive in and talk about it. We would love to hear your thoughts.
It makes our job easier.
Yeah. But just like this one, it's always a bit of surprise because, we send each other pictures of this is the game I'm going to pick. And then he does the same thing. And it's more I swear every time with you, Brendan, it's almost okay, I didn't see that coming. I almost think sometimes he's going to pick this game. How come he hasn't picked this game yet? This is so him. How come he hasn't picked it? But you always threw me into a loop. And so I don't know if you feel the same way with me.
So far, no. But I literally will sit here and look at my collection, because if I'm going to try and pick a game, I'm going to try and pick a game that I have played. And even though I haven't beaten every game in my collection, I've definitely played all of them, at least to test them out, right? But I'm man, I want to try and be a little diverse, because we do this show once a month, and so we're not doing it all the time. But I also don't want to just kind of get repetitive with so I did an RPG not last time, but the time before, so I don't want to go back to that barrel just yet. So let's try and do something different.
Yeah. So this one's a little interesting because this one I think is dedicated. My pick and your pick is a little different, because my pick is more dedicated to where mascots were just blooming at the time of this game coming out. And yours was a game, I want to say, it's weird. It's a success, but at the same time, it can easily be forgotten.
Yep.
I don't know how else to put it.
It had its moment to shine, and then it kind of fell off the face of the earth, kind of in the mid to late 2000s.
Yeah, and so the way the show works is we go with the first pick of the put out on the display of the show. We talk about what we want the game to be like, and followed by which developer we want to see do it. And then we do the same thing with round 2, and then we just basically wrap it up with our final thoughts and whatnot. So with that, let's go ahead and, cut all this and get right to the meat of the show here. So my first pick is a game during the time of the PlayStation and, other consoles around that time that kind of spun out. You remember 3DO? 3DO was a thing. Yeah, that was the thing. Yeah. It was basically the year of mascots. Now, just put in that mindset, when you think of PlayStation, who was the mascot that everybody thought was? Probably Crash Bandicoot, because he was everywhere. He was in the commercials. He was this guy dressed up like Crash Bandicoot with a microphone. He went to Nintendo, telling them, play our new console with the giant TVs and stuff. That's a funny commercial. I love that commercial. But PlayStation still didn't have a mascot, actually. So everybody was throwing their hat into the ring, I mean, we're talking about a lot of them. I mean, you think of one. You remember Klonoa, the raccoon with the 2 long ears? That was something from Namco that was trying to make a mark there. Rayman. Bubsy.
Yeah, Rayman.
Yeah, but this character I picked for this game was, I never got to play the first one until it came out for I think you can play it on the PlayStation Network now. I could be 100% wrong, but regardless, I have a copy of it. But I always thought, okay, this guy is so cool because he rocks sunglasses. That's it. Yeah. There's nothing else about him that's all right, he has sunglasses, he's cool, he's green, he's a lizard. You probably already know what I'm thinking of. But I remember I never played the first one, but I played the second one when it was, basically called Enter the Gecko. And I played it on the 64, and I loved it because I'm a big platformer person, and I love this thing. But one thing about this character is he was just a walking commercial. He was a walking cliche commercial. Everything was a one-liner. He thought he was the coolest kid, and that's Gex. Yeah. And basically, Gex started out in 95, and then followed by 98 with Enter the Gecko, and then 99 with the cover Gecko. And then after that, it was just gone. It disappears since then. Yeah.
Later on.
Right. And it was made by Eidos, the people that brought you Tomb Raider.
Yep.
And now that they bought by Sony, Gex is still kind of out in the wild. Eidos really kind of pushed him to the side. I guess his legacy is over apparently, and he's like, we have nothing else to do with him. There was actually a fourth one that was canceled actually for the PS2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, Brendan, before I go on, did you ever touch the famous the Gecko?
So, the very first time I ever played Gex was the very first day I got my PlayStation.
Okay.
It was on the Gex, I believe it was Gex 2, was on the demo disc that came with the system.
Okay.
So, that was my first taste of Gex. And as you said, he's completely ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Nothing but one-liners.
Yeah.
As a kid, I thought it was hilarious. Mm-hmm. And then I just remember there's a line, and I don't know, even today, I don't know why this is funny. Maybe it's got to be some sort of drug reference, but he just said, and when you walked through a bunch of water, he said, note to self, never drink the tap water at Jerry Garcia's. Of course, Jerry Garcia was from the Grateful Dead. Yeah. And if you know anything about the Dead, it's people would just follow them around their tour and just be high for the next 30 days or whatever. And so it's got to be something. It's got to be something along those lines. I'm not a huge Dead fan, so I don't really know if I get the joke. But I just remember that one line, and I'm just like, that is so random. And man, I didn't play the first one until I started collecting games, probably about 5 years ago. Because I'm like, of course I got to get the Gex games. I got to track those down for PlayStation. PlayStation's pretty much my favorite console to collect for. Mm-hmm. And I popped that first one in, and I was taken aback. didn't realize it wasn't a 3D platformer because it's a 2D platformer.
Yes.
And that's what made kind of trying to figure out which way I wanted to go with this with my developers a little tricky. So what I came up with, my gut was to keep it the same.
Okay.
And I came up, I'm like, okay, like instantly, I'm trying to think of like who here lately really knocked it out of the park with a 2D thing. But then after that, like literally right before we were going to meet up, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to have a second one for the 3D one, just as a little, I won't get too deep into it, but it's just hey, these guys, I'd love to see these guys do something with it because they've been doing stuff. So,
okay,
that's where we're going to go.
Yeah. So, another interesting thing about Gex, and plus people probably don't know who Gex is. I mean, Gex has been falling off for almost 10 years. So for people that don't know, Gex was a character that kind of was just living the good life. I mean, he inherited his money from his uncle and lived in Hawaii, basically. And he gets zapped into this thing called the media dimension, where it's basically he's on the set of different genres of movies. Your horror, kung fu, all this kind of stuff. And you're just going to level to level. And then in the second one, he was hired by the government to go after this guy, which the name is Rez, not to be compared to the Sega Rare game called Rez. Totally different. But he was just this being that was just trying to take over, I guess, like TV or network or something like that. And Gex was hired to stop him over and over and over again. And he was working for the government. He had a side chick. And so he goes to different worlds. One, he went to like a cartoon world, and I think eating flies was more like replenish his health. He can climb like a gecko and all that stuff. And yeah, like you said, like he just spot lines anytime he's like in a certain situation. He'll just say one-liners and all that. So I guess I'll go first and talk about what do I really want from Gex. So I think, one, the story needs to be reduced ridiculously. Like, it needs to still be ridiculous, but let's just bring it down a little bit more. Like, I don't really care that he inherited his uncle's money. That has nothing to do with what's going on here. Like, no. You could have just said he was just chilling Hawaii and he gets zapped into a TV. And I'm fine with that. But I think I wanted to go a little bit different, Brendan. I think I wanted a remake of this game, a reboot or whatever. And I wanted more, let's make fun of the video game world because he's a video game character. So let's go with the video game genre worlds that he goes into. And so I made it where his uncle actually disappeared and he left a console with him with a game inside and he gets zapped into the console. So
that's cool.
Yeah, and he goes saves his uncle, basically. Really plain and simple. And I guess I wanted to be where he would go into the more popular genre games that we see now. For example, I would like him to go to a world that's like Uncharted and Tomb Raider. And what I want to be, Brendan, is to make sure the game doesn't go stale. You adapt to the game style that genre goes into. So when you're going in Uncharted and Tomb World, you are going to be playing like how an Uncharted or a Tomb Raider game would be. I picked Metal Gear Solid, the first one, so he can learn how it would be as a stealth and make fun of that. And he's like, go climb all walls and stuff. It'd be hilarious to see at the beginning, where he's swimming in the water like Snake did. That'd just be funny.
He's
and he
got a little bandana on.
Yeah, and he comes out of the water. He's like, "Whoa, were you expecting a snake?" And just like make a fun pun to that or something like that. Red Dead, like he goes to the Wild West.
Cool.
Resident Evil. He can go into a horror kind of thing. And then lastly, just a 2D like retro pixelated game, like like Ninja Gaiden or something like that. Like he's a ninja going through a 2D platform, and that's what kind of what I wanted to do. And I think that's just the best way to kind of give it a fun history of our generation of video games and just make fun of them in a fun way, And one thing got me here is on February 2015, Square Enix announced that they will allow developers to create games based on some of their old properties.
Yep.
And Gex was one of them. So I was like, well, this is perfect. Anybody can do this. So who do I think can do this? And I pick Ubisoft. I pick Ubisoft because they have dipped almost in every single thing like that. Yeah. The Splinter Cell. between good and evil. I mean, Far Cry, all of it. I mean, they did Zombie U, but I mean, they still did something in the horror genre. Like, so they did a little bit of
like
everything.
Assassin's Creed, they did that.
Assassin's Creed. I actually thought of Assassin's Creed, him going to Assassin's Creed world, but my problem is like, I don't know how I would play that off without him not assassinating somebody. God, that'd be a little bit too much,
Instead of using Hidden Blade, he can use his tongue.
Yeah, that could work. Yeah. But no, I pick Ubisoft. I think Ubisoft is that goofy enough to do something with Gex, and I think they fit really perfect into that family. So much like they should just get Gex over there. Gex picks perfect over there, along with Rayman and all that stuff. Actually, there you go. They can go to a world like Rayman. Like Gex can fit in that world in the 2D as a world in that game. So yeah, that's my pick, Brandon. I'm a Ubisoft, and by your face, I'm excited what you have to say.
I picked Ubisoft because of what they did with Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends. Because I'm thinking, like, man, what are some of the best 2D platformers that I've played in the last however long? And my mind instantly went to that because they really knocked those games out of the park. Mm-hmm. And so, like you, I didn't go into the video game side of it, but I'm like, man, what could we spoof now that would be culturally appropriate as far as where we are? And so I'm thinking of like Game of Thrones. I'm thinking of like Avengers. Like how cool would it be like if you're able to like make deals to get like to remake the Avengers portal scene with Gex and like all these different have like a villain and he's got to get all these other like mascots together. Like
that can work too. Yeah.
That would be different. So yeah, no, I picked Ubisoft to do that because I'm like, man, they're just the right guys. I mean, to just, as you said, be silly with it. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, because that's the one that I went with for my 3D, or I'm sorry, for keeping it 2D. And because what they did with Rayman, because Rayman, if you remember back in the day, was originally 2D, and then they went 3D with it. And then they brought it back to 2D and completely knocked it out of the park.
Right.
My wife was addicted to those games. Mm-hmm. Before we had kids, she sat there with that Vita, with the PS Vita, for hours, and just 100%ing like at least the first one. I know she did that one. Mm-hmm. And the second one, Legends, it came out on the Vita because if you remember, that one actually got delayed.
Yes.
And she refused to wait for me to get off work. I was on nights at the time. I was going to go pick it up. And she refused it and bought it digital.
Wow.
And I'm just like, why? She goes, I wanted to play it now. I'm like, well, okay. So eventually I did buy a physical copy of it. But just a shout out real quick, because I didn't go too deep. That's the kind of the idea that I came up with for the spoofs, like Westworld or Game of Thrones, Avengers, a lot of the stuff that's really, like the superhero movies that we
what's really now. Going on, like what's really big right now. Heck, like John Wick.
Yeah, John Wick would be another one. But I just want to give a quick shout out because I was like, all right, do the exact same thing if you're going to do it in a 3D style. Like, who's making good 3D platformer games nowadays? And Playtonic Games, they did Yooka-Laylee. They were formed by former members of Rare, and they did like the spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie. And I just feel like they could really do a good 3D Gex if you're going to go that way. I would. Yeah.
To keep it kind of like that old school style. Yeah. Playtonic would work really well with that. Yes, especially.
So I just think it was funny that we both went with Ubisoft. Mm-hmm. But you went with it with a completely unique vision and with doing all the different game stuff. I wish I would have thought of that. That's a really cool idea.
Now, on the Gex being like Rayman, which animation would you want to do? Do you want to do the Origins or do you want to do the Legend style if the Gex was turned into that?
I guess it would. Or would you want to kind of? Well, I mean, you wouldn't want to really remake it to the same style it was, because the original style, if you remember, it was 2D, but it was almost like that.
It almost like a paper cutout. Weirdly enough, I don't know, dude.
It was like that kind of animation they did with Mortal Kombat, but it wasn't. Well, because Mortal Kombat, they used real people for the
yeah.
And they filmed it and they transported it over to a game. Mm-hmm. They did that there, but it almost in the same vein of like Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country has like a weird 3D effect while still being 2D. Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys are getting what I'm talking about. I wouldn't want to do that, but I definitely would. I'd probably take it over to like, I don't know, Origins and Legends, because I mean they're not that different and like apart from each other in style.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think maybe Origins is a little bit more
Okay.
I don't know.
I guess I guess I was asking more like, would you prefer him to be more hand drawn, or would you like to be him more like the CG? I guess in your
not
opinion?
CG. No, no. I would definitely keep it hand drawn.
Okay.
I would definitely make it cartoon because I really like that look for the 2D games. You know, like because you can make it now like to where it looks like an animation, like or like an animated movie. I remember the first time I played a completely different game, but when they first did a HD remix of Street Fighter 2, a Super Street Fighter 2 HD remix, and you know I played that tons when I was a kid, and to see what the characters looked like in like that flat hand drawn style, like man, this looks like I'm playing a cartoon almost. Like, I really liked what they did with Rayman with that.
The interesting thing I think I would take away from Gex, from both of ours, is the collectathon. Because like Gex had a little bit of a collectathon to do in each stage. I think for him it didn't work with that. I think it made him too much like every other game that was a collectathon during that era. I would definitely take that away. Well, not at least the first one. The first one was just basically like a straight like left to right. But when it came to the 3D ones, the Enter the Gecko and Decover Gecko, I feel like the collectathon was a little too much. Instead of just like more like let's just get to the mission or let's get it done. Or they should do it like Yooka-Laylee where there's little story missions that you do into that playground.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the games for like back then for that 3D platformer were just ridiculous for how much stuff you could go get and find and try to get every single thing. And I just remember like even back then when I was a kid, I'd be like, man, when is this game gonna like I don't know where this stuff is. And I'd always have that one friend who like 100%ed it. Like, oh, I walked over there. I'll give this. And I'm like, you had the patience for that? I just wanted to play the game.
Right. Where was the trophies then?
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, I'm very surprised that same friend isn't all into like 100. Like actually his brother is. His brother like 100% almost every game he plays. It's crazy.
Man, he's dedicated.
He is, man.
Man, I mean, I give people credit for doing that. But like, I think as I get older, I just need to get through this game. Yeah. You know, like I just don't have time for this. Especially when you have the online trophies. Like, yeah, that's where I exit out. That's when I exit out.
No, absolutely. I actually did 100% FF7 remake, but that was because I realized the only few things that I needed. I only needed to do like 2 more playthroughs. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but like I had no other game to play. You know, and I was kind of like doing my escape from reality thing, and we were on quarantine, so like there was nothing else to do.
Yep.
But
go ahead.
I don't have many. I have 4 platinums, and 3 of them are like Telltale games. So like
Telltales are like the easiest game to platinum.
Yeah, it's like a participation trophy. Here, you beat the game, you get a platinum.
Exactly. Actually, now that I thought about it, I think Gex could do Prince of Persia. I think I want him to go through Prince of Persia too.
That'd be cool.
No, but I honestly think out of the picks of this series so far, Gex has a really good chance of coming back. I mean, we're going to a new generation. Like, Gex can even go back to 2D. Like, an indie developer can take him right now and do something with that. So, like, I'm hoping that Gex does come back, and I hope somebody just gets something clever with him and not just do, copy and paste him. Because I think that he was special in his own way. There was not a lot of characters at the time was a walking one-liner movie. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So Gex, here's to you. Hopefully you come back. Now let's get to the big one here, Brandon. Tell them what it is.
So my pick for this episode is Syphon Filter.
Woo!
Syphon Filter was a game that came out on the original PlayStation. It is PlayStation. It's Sony-owned IP. So like with our choices, we could we are free to pick whoever we want, but my challenge was maybe try to keep it in house. Okay. That's where I kind of hinted. I kind of went out of the box here, but no. It originally came out on the original PlayStation. There were 3 games on the original PlayStation, and those are like a trilogy of games. I guess you could say it. I mean, the story flows through. The 4th game was called the Omega Strain. It was a quasi online game. It was an online game, but you could play the entire game offline for like the story mode. And you made your own character and went through. So you're a new operative playing the game. And then there were 2 games released for the PSP, and it was Syphon Filter Dark Mirror and Logan's Shadow. And that was a completely different feel because on the PSP there's no dual sticks. So, they changed the control a little bit to have like the over the shoulder aim and stuff. Mm-hmm. But there's no stick. So they actually use the 4 face buttons, the X, circle, triangle, and square as your second control stick. Very different. Mm-hmm. But Syphon Filter after that kind of just poof, it disappeared. It's off the map. It's funny because you hear like other people reference, like in Metal Gear Solid 3. I don't know if you ever played Snake Eater.
I have, yeah.
But they came out with a version of that called Subsistence, and there was Snake versus monkeys, and it was a ridiculous side game where basically it was the monkeys from Ape Escape, and Snake had to go catch him in the jungle.
Okay.
And they did a preface call where like the Colonel's like, Snake, I need you for a very important mission. What is it? Monkeys. What? You need to catch monkeys. Get out of here. Right. And he's like, Snake, we need you. He goes, can't you get Sam or Gabe to do it? And it was, Sam Fisher and Gabe Logan, the other stealth, combat, I guess, or stealth military style of games at the time. So name dropped there. And then they did in one of the, I think, newer Ghost Recon games, they did a Splinter Cell like add-on to it where you played as Sam. And they did a little tip-off to Solid Snake in that one where like they kind of make a reference to Snake being retired, where some old guy decided to finally hang it up. You're the last one left, and like Sam almost kind of is like, wow, I'm the last one. And he has like a moment of silence, like for anyway. Yeah, Gabe has been silenced for a long time. Gabe Logan is the main character of the Syphon Filter series, and the gameplay style was a mix of stealth and action. They're literally, it's level based, so some levels you're right in there and you're just like, gun toting in M16, just shooting everybody. And other levels, it's like a strict stealth. Like if you get caught, restart at checkpoint. The game is fun and completely annoying at the same time. But you can see where they were going, and you even said right before we went on the air, you can see where they kind of maybe took some of that and went to like Uncharted with it. Maybe blended it with some Tomb Raider and some of the climbing and traversal. Mm-hmm. But like you told me that you'd never really played the game.
No.
And so I have. I played all three. I remember renting this from the store, and there were cheat codes, infinite ammo, like running around. They even had a taser. I don't know if you saw this in like any of the videos.
No, I didn't. I did not see a taser.
It's like a little hand taser, and they have like for stealth ones, they have one where you just like zap somebody. But there's one where it shoots a hook out, and it attaches to the dude, and he just starts getting zapped. And if you hold it, the dude will catch on fire.
What?
He's like, ah!
Do you remember which one that was?
That was the first one. And
it was the first one.
All of them had it.
Okay.
All of them had it. But I specifically remember the first one is ridiculous. And Gabe Logan works for some mysterious government agency, as you do, secret agent. And Syphon Filter is a virus of sorts. Kind of timely that we're talking about it now. But he's got to stop it. He's got to stop terrorists from setting out this virus or this
almost as a James Bond field.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah,
like an American version of that.
Mm-hmm.
The first game flows into the second game. The third game was really weird, and I don't really like it as much. Where the entire story of the game is told in a courtroom, and basically you play as different characters in the series as testifying, and the game will flash back into the mission that they were talking about. Mm-hmm. And so on some hands it's cool, on other hands it's not. And also the voice acting is just atrocious. In all the games, like they're just terrible.
Okay.
But Syphon Filter, action stealth. There's one thing. One of the reasons why I picked this series for our podcast is because there is a severe lack of good stealth games out there. Like you have Assassin's Creed, but that's kind of different now. It's not, it's done a different way. The Last of Us is a stealth game to an extent, and it does it pretty good. But there's rumors of a new Splinter Cell, maybe, but they haven't.
Has that
really
rumor
done
been going on
much.
for a while though?
It has been.
Yeah.
Metal Gear's been off like on its own thing, and probably we don't know what's going on with that because Kojima's not with the company anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He won't be doing it, so we really don't know. So I'm like, Syphon Filter. That's a series that Sony can do something with and bring something back. And you know what? I will go first this time because I said this is a complete out of left field, and that is pun intended.
I'm excited.
I decided to go with the studio who's never made a game like this before. They are within Sony, and so they can bring in people from like Naughty Dog or Ben Studio. Ben Studio was the studio that made Syphon Filter. They went on to do Days Gone, but they started with like Syphon Filter and stuff like that. But this studio, it's San Diego Studio.
The team that does baseball, right?
The team that does MLB The Show.
Okay, just making sure. All right.
Okay. So I was thinking about, man, what could I do? Like, who could do this? Because Naughty Dog's an easy pick. Naughty Dog, because they literally, just as you said, they've made 4 Uncharted, 2 Last of Us games where the whole premise is like running around, cover shooting, and doing like basically, if you take both of those premises, that's Syphon Filter.
Exactly.
In a way.
Exactly.
Last of Us is a different premise, but it still has stealth gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Uncharted doesn't really have stealth. You're just like in an action movie, essentially. Like you're just playing an action movie. But, San Diego, they have a couple different games in their catalog that it's a little bit different from MLB. They did the Mark of Creed. Did you remember that one?
Mark of Creed is it KRI? Is that? Yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah. There's a sequel to that too, right?
Rise of Kasai or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I know you're talking about. Yeah, okay.
They didn't do they didn't do the second one, but they did Mark of Creed.
Okay.
And they've done NBA 2005 for PSP.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But then they've got another game, and this game, I don't know if you ever played this one. They also did Mod Nation Racers. I don't know if you ever played that.
That was on the PSP, I believe, right?
PS3 and PSP, and it was a completely user created. You make your own kart racers, make your own tracks.
Okay.
But they have a game called Drawn to Death. Did you ever play that one?
I never played it, but I know exactly what you're talking about because I remembered the trailer where this kid was doodling on his desk.
Yep.
And then it goes in and it becomes, I think, what is it, a multiplayer?
Yeah, like shooter, over the shoulder shooter.
Yeah.
Don't exactly think Splatoon.
Okay.
But almost the same kind of like team versus like online player running around with the thing. Yeah. So they dabbled in a little bit of like arcade shooty stuff.
Okay.
But mostly they're known for making MLB The Show. Now, so the thing is that MLB The Show is a really good, well-developed game for the most part. It looks spectacular. It plays pretty spot on. Every time you do a new game every year, there's always going to be stuff on there that's not exact. But that's why I picked this team, because it gives them something completely different than what they've been doing for the past however many years.
So it's more of a challenge for them, per se.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and then of course they're within, and the one reason why I decided, because I could have gone to another company, another dev team, bigger or smaller, but I'm thinking that give this team something different to kind of wet their palate with, and since they're within the Sony umbrella, they can call over, hey guys, maybe come down here and maybe give us a hand. Like, what do you think? Maybe consult with Naughty Dog since they did some action stuff. Maybe consult with Ben, who did the original games. Like, hey, what do you think of this? What should we do here?
Now Insomniac, they got enough people. They got enough people now.
So it's like that. Sony could really use, just like what Ubisoft does. Ubisoft has all like 7 teams working on Assassin's Creed. Mm-hmm. One team may not do a lot of stuff, but they might have, hey, maybe do this, do that. We'll help you do this. And so I really feel like it would be good for San Diego because it would give them that break away from making a baseball game every year.
So let me ask you this. Would you want them to do a continuation of the series, or would you want them to just reboot it?
Reboot it. No, there's no reason to keep it going at this point because it's been so long since the series has been active.
Okay.
I would start it completely over with a modern day take on it. Like, what will we do with it now with today's technology? And I would try to maybe even deepen the characters, because if one thing can be said about the original game, characters aren't that deep. You play
No.
as Gabe Logan, superstar secret agent, and you don't know much about his backstory. You just know that him and his partner Leon have some history. They've been working together for a long time. There's even maybe semblance, not maybe of straight up romanticism there, but they care about each other on a deep level.
It's like a bromance, but not.
Well, I mean, Leon's a girl. Leon
yeah,
is
yeah. That's what I mean. That's the funny part. Is she's more part of the boys kind of chick.
Yeah, because it's never really said that they're romantically involved at all, but they trust each other.
Yeah.
And see, because in the first game you play as Gabe and that's it, and then the second game you play as Gabe and Leon, and then the third game you play as 4 other people. It goes off to just mostly Gabe, a little bit of Leon, and then this dude and that girl, and then you in the game, and it's we've taken over the agency. How does this work? We don't know. We're on vacation.
So would you wanted to keep it the same style, like the separate the level system of stealth and one stage action, or do you have an idea that would kind of combine that together in one thing? What's your mind thinking on that?
All right, so what I would do is I would definitely keep it kind of level based, but also see what they've done with the Uncharted and Last of Us style of level based stuff. It's some of those areas are pretty big to go through.
Yes, they are.
So you can make some pretty big levels. You don't have to have a completely open world. You can have some open world areas to do some stuff with, like they did. Because see, in a way, I kind of feel like MGS5 took that a little bit too far, because they did have open world stuff, but they only had 2 maps, really, that you can do stuff on. And by the end of the game, you're just kind of doing the same stuff in the same area, but it's a different story thing.
Then what about Uncharted 4? Would that be a good example? Because
open map exactly.
Area? Okay,
exactly. Okay. So and then of course I wouldn't make it like in the old time where if you got caught, the mission's over. Mm-hmm. But I would try to make it a really really interactive, cool stealth thing. And of course, you can borrow a lot from what they've done with Uncharted with the traversal, and to make it a little bit more of a platform style of game, unlike where it was before, where it was basically just kind of a run and gun mixed with some stealth. But then also, with what they've done, and at Naughty Dog with some of their really cool, some of the Uncharted games with their train levels there, because there's a train level in the second Syphon filter where you're on a train, we're moving forward. So that's something that has been done before. But I feel like San Diego could use a break. And I feel like they could bring in enough people to consult and help out. And it would help maybe even get them out of that umbrella of just making a sports game every single year. Maybe they don't have to do that. Maybe you can, because now, I don't know if it's this year or next year, but MLB The Show is no longer going to be exclusive to the Sony platform. Mm-hmm. They still have the exclusive rights to make the game, but it's going to be going to Xbox, PC, or wherever it's going to be going to in the future. So maybe maybe it's time to grow the studio, maybe split them off into 2 teams, because right now, I do believe that San Diego Studio says it's 90 plus employees, and also 989 Studios was the predecessor to San Diego Studio.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And I didn't know that either. What's interesting is that 989 Studios was involved with Syphon filter.
Everything connects somewhere, somehow. You know what I mean? It's just everything connects.
I don't think it was the first one, but I think the second and third one had because I remember that back in the day, you had some really cool the 989 Studios.
Yeah.
A little bug before the
yeah. Almost sound like you did EA Sports is in the game sound too.
In the game, yeah.
Yeah. So I went a little bit deep.
Okay.
Yeah. So my history of Syphon filter is no history at all. So I know of it. I remember seeing the commercial where this guy is just walking around. He's just going into his world imagination, and he's seeing famous parts of that video game in his head. So if everybody remembers the commercial, definitely check it out.
Yeah.
But I think I watched 1, 2, and 3 and Mirror's Faith. No, is it Mirror's Faith?
Dark Mirror. Sorry,
I'm thinking of something else. And I was just sitting there watching it over and over again, just kind of get the idea okay, what did they learn from the other one? Did they add on here and there? And you're right. A lot of people don't like the third one. They don't like it. And the second, the one on the PS2, the first one, it just people did not like the whole like creating your own character. It was like, no, I want to be Gabe. Give me more Gabe. You know?
No, you don't get to play as those characters. It's like now you play as a new recruit and you work your way up through the system or whatever. But no, we wanted another adventure with Gabe and the crew. You know.
So I guess when I was looking at this game, I was like, what is the thing that I think is missing that would help top this game up? And I realized like making decisions on the fly. I think that's what Syphon Filter needs. Like certain decision on the fly and see where that goes with it. So I wanted to do a reboot, a whole reimagine, same characters. But here's the kicker, though. I want the God of War treatment. I don't want any cutscenes. I want it to be you're with Gabe every step of the way, from the beginning to the end. So you're there for like all the decisions he's making, his all that stuff. And I have it where mission-based changes based on your choices in the moment. So if you decide not to do this particular mission, it will take you this way and just see what happens. You know, what if you let that guy go, or you didn't set the bomb, you didn't get to the bomb fast enough? You know, where does this next story go to? Even to the decision where I think your partner could die.
That'd be interesting.
And you could continue the story, though. So you get two different endings. You get different endings. I just think it'd be interesting because God of War really threw something new at me, whereas like I never really played a game with no cutscenes. You know, most cutscenes kind of give you more of kind of a visual what's going on, but here you're every step of the way with him. You're feeling what he's feeling in the moment, everything. And I think that's what Gabe needs, because you're talking about Gabe needs to be. We need to learn more about Gabe. And I think to learn more about Gabe is giving you the situation to give him tough decisions so you can feel what he feels in that moment, you know?
No, I absolutely agree. He needs to be more of a character.
Yeah.
Instead of a caricature of a character, like he was. Like literally the only thing that people know about him from back in the day is that he ran like a sissy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we'll change that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I want the reaction with her, him, and his partner, where you know she'll disagree and she acts different around him. You know, it's like I can't believe you let that guy get away. I don't know if I can trust you right now. So even so much she adapts to, like, if you need her to do something, she's more like, I'll do it, but I'm not gonna like it, or to like, no, you do it. I don't trust myself doing it. You know, just something to make you feel more. A little more alive, kind of like what you get from The Last of Us. Like, let the AI just flow with it and adapt to the decision that you had. And then based on, you know, during your missions, which I want it to be, you know, one mission goes, another one just jumps on top. Like, okay, trying to head to the next area. Based on your missions and people you kill, I want it where you can just upgrade your weapons and gear. No skill tree for the individual. It's unnecessary for them. So it's more of, you can hit places where you can get upgrades to your weapons, like add mods to your gun or more protection on you so you can go further on. And the person I picked for this one was actually Jaeger Development. And they are known for a game that did something similar to that. And that's Spec Ops The Line that they did for 2K games. And they're really good. Like, there's a game right there where it feels dull at first, it feels boring, but then when it starts, it doesn't stop. And
I know.
And his friends adapt to it. They get confused. He gets confused. You don't know what's right or wrong anymore. And I think that's what Syphon Filter needs. It needs us to be where there's this terrorist with this bomb. That's nerve-wracking. So every decision you make from here to that point, it's going to be effective. And I want to feel like the job's on the line, and I can actually, no pun intended, fuck it up and maybe destroy everyone. I don't know, but I got that from Spec Ops where, like, I don't know if I'm going to make it out alive. That's what I want for Syphon Filter.
Absolutely, man. Yo, dude, Spec Ops The Line is a game that doesn't get talked about enough.
Mm-hmm. And that was actually a reboot. They reboot Spec Ops The Line. I mean, Spec Ops with that game. And it's sad that we didn't get any more. It's one of the most underrated games out there.
I agree. Unfortunately, it gets paired up a lot of times with like Gears of War, with like kind of a cover shooter type deal. But if you ask me, I think it's a better game story wise than Gears of War.
Mm-hmm.
It's more cerebral, and I really dig that. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, I'm with you all the way. I think they would be great to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just sad that Jaeger, just like your studio, San Diego, they don't really get a lot of work.
Yeah.
They're not defunct either. They just,
Yeah.
no one will take them. The last project they did was actually Dead Island 2 that got like shut down and remade again, but Jaeger was part of it, and they got kicked out of that situation. So now they got another developer coming in to do it. So the fact, I don't know what happened there. I don't know what Jaeger's vision was for that or whatever, but that's the last time like they had a project that big. I think the next game they did was more like either like a simple small game or a phone game or something like that, but they haven't. It's just sad to see that Spec Ops was a very underrated game, and they deserve a little bit more attention because of that game. And I think that game needs to be come back in a different way so people just know about who Jaeger development is, because they had something there.
I would love to see a remaster of that come in. And, I know we're like, that's almost like a whole generation ago now,
Yeah.
Way back on the PS3 and 360. But, supposedly we're getting a remaster or something of like the Mass Effect series. Why can't we do a remaster of a game like Spec Ops: The Line, where it's so, it was almost kind of like the way that like the first Red Dead Redemption was. It was like, man, it came out and a lot of people were like, this game is really good. You guys need to give this game a chance. This isn't just like GTA in the Old West. There's more to it. And same with Spec Ops. A lot of people, everybody that I've talked to that's ever played it says, yeah, that game, man, it didn't get enough love.
Yeah. So that's what I think Syphon Filter needs to go. I think to get more to let people know what that game is, we really need to just understand where Gabe's coming from as an agent trying to stop a bomb. And that's why I think no cutscenes. Let's be there for every step of the way and see how it feels to be an agent in that world. And so,
well, absolutely. And see, the storyline for the original games, the agency ends up turning against Gabe.
And see, that would be awesome.
And then so then he's like on the run, and the agency is trying to take him down, And so I just think that would be so cool to play like if they did the first game and you really get to find out what it's like to be an agent, and then all those tools that you had that made you a better agent. You don't have those anymore, like for like the second one, and all of them are gunning against you. So all those awesome agents that maybe, because how cool would that be to be like playing the first game, and you're getting to know who Gabe is, and Gabe's already established in the agency. He's already a star player, but like you come across different agents and that work with you in different missions and stuff, and you get to know who they are.
Yeah,
and then if they do a sequel, they're coming after you.
There you go.
So it's like, wow, I just learned who this guy was, my favorite guy, and now he's trying to kill me.
Right.
So now, just like what I said, or like we said with like The Last of Us and how those decisions, like now this dude over here, man, I don't want to do this, but like you're playing as Gabe, and Gabe's got to get through this, man. So like, what do you do? Like, do you take this guy out, or do you try to find another way? Maybe you can do that with the choices to where like you can find like a non-lethal way to take the guy out or whatever. To carry on with what you're doing. How
crazy would be on like, since you mentioned that, like doing decisions you don't want to do. What if a decision you made leads to maybe almost you have to kill your partner because she she betrayed you? Like those are just stuff up there, like almost like like Heavy Rain and like Detroit and all that. Like there's just so many things that can happen and you just don't know. And because nothing's better than going back to your friends is like, that's what happened to you. That didn't happen to me. Like,
see, there and not to interrupt you, but there's been a lot of talk about lately about how long games are, like how long The Last of Us Part 2 is, or how long like Persona 5 is. It's like a 100-hour game. How cool would it be to make this like a 12-hour experience, but like you said, you had different outcomes for certain things. So therefore, like it gives you replayability, because it gives you that like what they did with Detroit was really neat, because it really like laid out like all these different branches and outcomes you could have had that you didn't get. But with this game, it's a much more interactive game, where you're running around and you're jumping around and you're shooting and you're getting into scraps and everything, or being sneaky. But yeah, for a lot of people who are complaining about keeping games shorter, I think this would be a great way to lengthen the game without making it the overall experience. Because if you just want to play it through once, you can play it through once. Like we said, man, we're getting older. We don't have a lot of time.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I think your idea would be really great for that.
My only issue that I think I'm conflicted about is, do I want it to be the over the shoulder kind of gameplay, or do I want it to keep it more out third person? Do I want the wussy run to come back? And so
well, I don't know, man. Well, because when I was thinking of it, I was kind of thinking of it of, you know, the whole traversal, that wussy run type deal where you're running around and you are doing stuff, or you get behind cover. So, but then like when you do the aiming stuff, you can maybe, like let's zoom in on the shoulder a little bit and become kind of an over shoulder.
Okay.
Kind of deal. That's what I would do with it, because I mean, Spec Ops: The Line was definitely, when you aimed, it was over shoulder, like
right.
That's how you aim.
Yeah. Well, no, great picks. Syphon Filter was actually, I don't know why. Like I got into it, I was like, you know, how come we haven't had a game like this? And like you said, like Metal Gear hasn't been around for a long time now. You know, Splinter Cell is still, we don't know anything about. Like, there hasn't been anything to take that reign. Splinter Cell is the perfect time. It could have been the moment when the PS5 got announced that would have been the bombshell right there, that it came back, because it's his time. It's his perfect time to take all this fame of stealth games until Metal Gear or Splinter Cell decide to come back. This is the perfect time for this.
Yeah, dude, that window's open. You know, they're already doing it. They brought Ratchet and Clank back.
Yeah,
and they did that movie or whatever, and then they did their like remake or whatever, and now they're doing a whole new game for the PS5. You know, a whole new Ratchet and Clank game. So why can't we do a whole that would have blown people away. Yeah, like if you're watching a trailer and you're like, what is this? You know,
right?
And you're seeing some stuff. You're like, wait a minute, and it's Syphon. Whoa, no.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe we'll get one. You never know. It did skip a generation.
Yeah.
So maybe it's overdue for one.
Skip two generations.
Oh, two. My apologies. Two. So I mean, it's overdue for one. Absolutely. Maybe you'll get the Crash treatment.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. But with that, I want to thank everybody for listening to this awesome episode of the World Gaming Trade Show as part of the In-Game Boss program and the Game Addicts podcast. So definitely check out all our shows on there. If you want to find me personally, like my show, go to Twitter, go to Facebook, type in the In-Game Boss program, or you can find me personally as RetroAmp07. And remember, I'm on your favorite listening spots: Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and we're on YouTube. We got great shows on YouTube for you too. Brandon, where can they find you?
You can check me out on Twitter and Facebook and all those places, on social media, Instagram at Game Addicts Play. You can also check out GameAddictsPodcast.com, and you can check out the Game Addicts Podcast on all those same different places that he mentioned. We're also on YouTube. We got a YouTube channel. We do a video podcast and do some gameplay stuff when I have time, and we just talk and love of games, man. Yeah. Modern, retro. Yeah.
Love it. Love everything about it. No, but just remember, if you have any opinions, any comments about our picks or anything, you know, I post them, I ask questions. Please let us know. What developers do you want to see make these two games? I would love to see your vision, what you think. Should they go back to old school? Should they just remake just those two and just give it a fresh coat of paint? I just want to hear some thoughts. Give me something. All right?
Yeah, man. And also give us some shout out for some games, you know, for us to discuss. I think that's a good idea too, you know. That because we're always trying to pick new games. I'm sitting here racking my brain sometimes, trying not to pick something too obvious.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'm just like, all right, now this one I'm going easy. I'm going to do this one. And what's interesting, just our friend Nate, from Trinity Comics Network, he gave me a box full of just game cases. Cases. Now there's no games here, but there's a game in here, and I don't know if you ever played it, but I did. And, maybe down the line, not the next episode, because we already got the next episode picked.
Oh, I played it. Yeah. Okay.
Do you remember this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I'm not sure how he came across these cases. He goes, "Hey man, I got these game cases. There's no cases, but it's got the cases or no discs, but I got the cases and manuals. And I know like some of those games in there, they're a little pricey. So maybe if I ever come across a copy of it in the wild that is lacking a case, normally I just look past those, and don't even look at them. Mm-hmm. Now I've got some cases.
That's awesome.
I might be able
and especially, I'm guessing some of those are not even duplicates you already have in there.
Yes, absolutely. So, like, there's only a couple of them in here that the games I already have. Like that game I showed you, I don't have that, and I haven't bought it because it's a little pricey, you know.
Well, I'm excited, and with that, thank you so much, and we will catch you on our next show.
Hey guys, this is Brando, and I'm the host of the Game Addicts podcast, a show where I cover the latest news in gaming and take a look back at some of gaming's best consoles, series, and games. With over 3 years of episodes in the back catalog, there's plenty of great episodes to sink your teeth into, so check out GameAddictsPodcast.com or download us on your favorite podcast platform. Into live streams? Head over to twitch.tv/GameAddictsPlay for Let's Plays and to chat along with the podcast during the live recording. Still want more? Subscribe to our YouTube channel for your one-stop shop for everything we do. So what are you waiting for? It's time to level up and check out the Game Addicts Podcast.
Hey, this is Jeremy, a.k.a. the in-game boss.
And this is Jerron, a.k.a. the Evil of Aku.
And I want to tell you about a show as part of the In-Game Boss program network called the In-Game Boss Podcast.
It's a podcast about fun topics and questions that challenge the listeners and each other.
And we are on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other listening services.
But don't forget to subscribe to social media, Facebook and Twitter.
So come by and enjoy the show.